I think we could have been, we were up 8, we could have been up 15. We had a bunch of 2-on-1 opportunities against their one defense that we didn't make right at the rim, which is what they kind of play for.
Okay, it's been a long time since you saw Rhode Island. You saw LaSalle recently. How do you think you match up against both of them?
They're all the same for us. I mean, if you sit there and look at Rhode Island's games, you know, they've been in almost every game. They just haven't won. And LaSalle has gotten hurt with I forget the guy's name, the left-hander. He's been hurt, the 6'5". So he's been hurt. That has hurt them. But you look at their pop in the backcourt, they've got good pop. So Rhode Island's got good backcourt people. I mean, they're a little bit different, both teams. So, but we pretty much know what they're going to do.
Reese had 2 of his better games against both of them, and I guess against Fordham a little bit too. When he's right, what's been the most right about what gets him going? Is it defense feeding offense?
Ball going in the basket, really. You know, when things go pretty well for him, he's pretty good. His problem is a little bit more when things don't go well. You know, that's kind of what we've been working with him all year on, just, you know, getting to the next play, forgetting the bad play, you know, and not worrying about immediate results, just keep playing hard. So that's usually when he makes a few, he's usually pretty good for the whole game.
When the team has been slept on all season long, do you think it maybe makes it a little bit easier to go on a run in A-10s just because there's not really any pressure to succeed?
That's a good question. You know, is there pressure or isn't there pressure? I think every time you're in a one-and-done situation, whether you're the best team or the worst team, there's still pressure. You know, I'm sure these guys feel pressure about winning in the tournament. But I think everybody's got pressure. It's just who handles pressure. You know, just trying to be as even-keeled and, you know, make sure equilibrium is nice and steady. We're going to compete like we competed at Fordham. We just didn't play great. It's just a matter of we can play 4 good games. One good game, another good game, another good game, and another good game. We're capable of it. We've shown that. Just have to play 4 good games. It's ironic that we play Fordham again. You know, when you look back at the game, it seemed like a big deal, the double bye, and but it turned out that it's pretty similar to what we would have got the other way too, right? I mean, I don't know how it would have all panned out, but it would have been similar. I think we would have been maybe the 4th seed instead, right? They're the 3 seed. So everybody, look. You can say that George Mason was 5th, right? But they're not that much different than LaSalle, who was 10th or 11th, right? Or Davidson. Like everybody thinks that Davidson loss was a bad loss. It was a bad loss because it was at home, but they're good. Like they got one of the best players in the league, and you know, I think they're going to play. They're going to be close. There's probably 7 teams that could win the tournament. I don't know if there's more than that, but there's at least 7.
So do you think it's more balanced when everyone's playing on a neutral court? You know, you guys are pretty good at home. Everyone's playing on neutral court. Does it kind of close the gap on who has favorites and who isn't?
Good point. The gaps are close anyway, right? Like, I mean, I think clearly there's a couple teams that have a bigger margin of error than others, but other than that, there is no margin of error. It's like tiny. So I think that's probably the weirdest thing about the league. I don't think there's some teams that can't win 4 games. I mean, that's clear. They can't play 4 good games in a row, or to that level. It'll be really difficult for them. But they can win 1 game. Anybody can win 1 game. And I think, Dave, you looked up the numbers. Very rarely has the regular season champion won the tournament.
It's been. The last 16 regular season champ won 3 times.
So 3 out of 16.
Yeah, 3 of the last 16, and 8 different ones have won the past 12. 8 different schools, so it's kind of wide open.
It's no different than the Big Ten tournament or the ACC tournament, right? The good leagues, anybody can, not anybody, but there's a lot of teams that can win the tournament. Like I think the other year, Georgetown won 5 games and won the tournament in the Big East. Nobody would have thought that, but they did.
Use that margin of error phrase, I think, after the UMass game, talking about Dayton, when we're asking you some questions about the tournament coming up. Like, do you feel you have a greater margin of error now that a lot of the depth components that you thought you had at the start of the season have come to fruition and you've been able to use them? Does that allow you to have a greater margin of error because you have depth pieces?
I think as the tournament goes, we have a little bit of an advantage because we have pretty good depth. I don't know if it helps you that much early in the tournament, but it helps you later in the tournament because we can play, 10, 11 guys, right? 10 guys right now. If you count the 3 centers and then 2 4-men, that's 5, and then 5 guards, we have 10 guys pretty much right now. Whereas most people don't have 10 guys or don't want to play 10 guys. Because invariably, somebody gets hurt in a tournament as well. A good player, sprains his ankle or he's beat up, or it happens all the time. Gotta be lucky too, right? There's a lot of luck involved in this.
Since the shortened COVID season, Duquesne has sort of had a rough go of things, but this season it seems like you guys are back on track. To you, just what does it mean for this program and team to be heading in the right direction? And what do you think it means for the future of Duquesne basketball?
I mean, we got a shot to be good next year. I think we have a pretty good chance to have a good team next year. If everything goes right and we don't have any casualties. I thought the team the year, we only played 18 games. I thought that team actually played pretty well considering the circumstances. We had 3 guys quit on that team, and they still were a competitive team. They couldn't win the league, but they won a game in the tournament. They beat Richmond, who was a good team in the tournament. It was a good team. They got stung by some, departures. So really the only bad team we've really had is that last year's team. So what it means is we showed we can rally back and, probably one player away from really being a high-level team. But a lot of people could say that, but if, I think I know our weaknesses better than most. I think we have some inconsistencies because we rely a lot on the perimeter. And if we could score a little bit better on the inside, I think we could, we would make another big jump. So, which we have some young kids that eventually I think can. So we just have to keep developing it.
You just mentioned that you're one player away from, being a whole lot better essentially, but that's another way that Duquesne has been sort of counted out all season long. I think Duquesne was the only A-10 school with a winning record that didn't have Player of the Week or Rookie of the Week. Just, do you have anything to say about that?
It's an interesting fact, right? I mean, it speaks to good balance. I'm looking at the positive side of it, right? It speaks to good balance, bad timing, maybe lack of, respect in some regards. I don't know. You can look at it in a variety of ways, right? Like we've had some good performances though, which, I mean, there's a lot of good players in this league, and we've got some good players. So you got to earn your respect like anything else, and we'll see how it ends up here, and then I can probably comment on it a little bit more. I'd rather have a Player of the Week right now. How's that for the coming week? That would be pretty good, right? I don't know if they have those though, do they?
Last one was today.
How about the tournament MVP? That would be a good one.
Drew was talking in there a lot about communication during practice. Do you feel when your team faces adversity, whether they get down or even losing a game, that they've responded by, having that communication waver? Do you think the communication's ever affected, or is it just, shots don't fall, they get down, but they're still communicating well?
I mean, it's an area for young people that has to improve for every team in the country. There's very few teams in the country that communicate at the highest level. If you go to an NBA practice, for instance, you can really hear the difference between the communication in an NBA game and a college game. So it's something that comes with maturity and understanding and learning, how to be a big time winner. Because there's so many plays that go on out there that require reaction and communication and fixing mistakes that if you don't communicate, you're going to get bit. And then some guys are quiet, like it takes some time to get out of their shell, but it's something that we stress every single day. And it's one thing to huddle your group, but it's another thing on every play to have your mouth open. So I think that's probably the biggest thing most coaches fight, especially in the day of the telephone that we deal with now, right? Where people aren't used to communicating to one another. They're used to texting one another or, all the social media stuff. They really don't talk on the phone, or do they? I don't really think much, right? So and then, you go out to dinner, for instance, and there might even be a 70-year-old couple that aren't saying 3 words to one another. They're just looking at their phones, which maybe after 40 years of marriage, that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know, but it's next time you go out to dinner, look, it's kind of crazy. So that I think the dynamics of our culture has changed too, which makes communication even more difficult. And then the proper way to communicate as well. Like me and Drew, we get at each other, but we've been friends for a long time. Like sometimes what comes out of our mouths isn't really the greatest way to communicate, but for us it's fine. So you have to know your teammate as well. It's group dynamics, right? That's really what this is managing group dynamics.
I heard you also say in practice, some guys were trying to huddle up. They called for a huddle, and you said, no, figure it out yourself. Get yourself going right now. Do you think they've all taken that, personal accountability to get so locked in for this tournament, leading up to this? Or do you still feel like this team needs to get their feet wet in the tournament action and then kind of lock in there?
I think accountability-wise, they've been really good. Like, they've never made it like coaching staff versus players or player versus player. They've rooted for one another. Each guy's a little different. Some guys can't take accountability at the time, but they will later. But overall, their accountability is good. Now, are they mature and composed enough and been in this situation enough to win the tournament? I mean, sometimes you're better off not to have been there a few times, because they don't really know what it's like. We went 7 straight years at Akron. Boom, 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 which, is hard, especially when you're supposed to win it, and that becomes difficult as well. So sometimes, not knowing what's going to happen may be better. Good?
I'm gonna get those guys in here as soon as they finish. Joe's finishing up shooting, so we gotta Zoom at 1:15.